I think live. I think we're live. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, Thursday night. Time to go live with Constitutions in Solution. Good evening, Hoosiers. How are you feeling tonight? Not bad, huh? Do you feel like you just ran into a hornet's nest? This is much worse than whack-a-mole. These globalists, collectivists, socialists, statists, pests sting with events. They swarm like the bar on meth. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. Have we been brainwashed with years of mind control, psyops, to a zombie state of volitional oppression? Is this the end of liberty? Hoosiers, I say no. We will not collide. There is a way out of the mess. There is a remedy for these malignant pests. And there is a remedy that is more effective than a can of hornet spray. There is a solution. The Constitution solution. Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Guerra from Warsaw, Indiana, with yet another episode of The Constitution Solution. Tonight, we'll resume this discussion of the Indiana Constitution, more specifically, Article 10, Finance. But before we resume examining the Indiana Constitution, I would like to take a moment to make a comment about current event, war. Let me ask you to lay aside from all the jingoistic rhetoric and simply consider the wisdom and virtue of founder James Madison, the major author of our Constitution. I call your attention to his work, Political Observations, from April 20th, 1795. Allow me to quote James Madison. Of all the enemies of public liberty, war is perhaps the most to be dreaded, as it comprises and develops the germ of every other. War is the parent of armies. From these proceed debts and taxes. And armies and debts and taxes are the known instruments bringing the many under the domination of the few. In war, too, the discretionary power of the executive is extended. Its influence dealing offices, honors, and demands is multiplied, and all the means of seducing the minds are added to those of subduing force of the people. The same malignant aspect of publicanism may be traced in the inequality of fortunes and the opportunities of fraud growing out of a state of war. And in the generosity of manners and of morals engendered by both. No nation could preserves freedom in the midst of continual warfare. No nation preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. I have nothing to add to that. Those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat its mistakes. Okay, let's get back to Indiana, specifically to Article 10. Now, remember, Indiana has had two constitutions. The first was from 1816, and the second was from 1851. The second one has been amended many times to give us current 2018 version. Finance, you might think boring compared to, say, Bill of Rights. But no, this is just as important. We are speaking about money, your money, that the state government coerces from you and then proceeds to apply budgetary items that may or may not be a waste of your money. In the 1816 Constitution, I find maybe 5 one-line references to finance and revenue. Then, after the state of Indiana went bankrupt, spent on infrastructure, that is Wabash and Erie now, the 1851 Constitution was developed somehow solve the revenue problem. They never solved the revenue problem. They never solved the spending problem. The 1851 Constitution actually include Article 10, finance. Now, from 1851, there was a personal property tax and a real estate tax. More money, more spending, and these taxes and regulations that were generated with them now mean that actually no one in Indiana truly owns real estate or personal property. You effectively rent from the state because they will seize and liquidate your personal property and real estate for a few pennies. Don't even get me started. Then with Amendment 10, 1932, the income tax was added. More revenue, more spending. So you don't actually earn money. You didn't earn that. The state allows you to keep some money after they skim off the cream. You'd think we were ruled by the mob. We are, actually. The 1966, 2004, and 2010 amendments, finance article is now 3 pages of mind-numbing legal and accounting word salad. So are you ready? Remember, I am reading from the Constitution of the State of Indiana, annotated by Andy Horning, Horning, from 2010. You can find that version online. His comments are interesting. Well, here we go. Article 10, finance. Section 1. Like I said, get ready for the salad here. Section A, subsection A. Subject to this section, the General Assembly shall provide by law for a uniform and equal rate of proper assessment and taxation, and shall prescribe regulations to secure a just valuation taxation of all property, both real and personal. B, a provision of this section permitting the General Assembly to exempt property from taxation also permits the General Assembly to exercise its legislative power to enact property tax deductions and credits for the property. The General Assembly may impose reasonable filing requirements for an exemption, deduction, or credit. What's reasonable? C, the General Assembly may exempt from property taxation and any property, any of the following clauses. Number one, property being used for municipal, educational, literary, scientific, religious, or charitable purpose. It's interesting to get tax deduction. A church conflict with Article 1, Section 6 that no money from the state treasury shall go to any religious purpose. Just 2, tangible personal property or other property being held as an investment. That is, they may exempt, don't have. Number 3, intangible property. Number 4, tangible property, including curtilage used as a principal place of residence by an A, owner of the property, B, individual who is buying the tangible property under contract, or C, individual who has a beneficial interest in the owner of the tangible property. What is curtilage? Well, it means the house and the immediate yard, usually surrounded by fence or other demarcation. Like I said, word on. Where were we? Subsection little d. The General Assembly may exempt any motor vehicles, mobile homes not otherwise exempted of this section, airplane, boats, trailer, similar properties, provided that an excise tax in lieu of the property tax is substituted therefore. I guess that means the government owns you and all of your property. Subsection little e. This subsection applies to property tax first due and payable in 2012 and thereafter. The following definitions apply to subsection little f. 1. Other residential property means tangible property. Other tangible property described in subsection C4 used for residential purposes. 2. Agricultural land means land devoted to agricultural use. 3. Other property means real property that is not tangible property described subsections C. 4. Is not other residential property and is not agricultural land. Comprehending this? If you are, then I'm impressed. Okay. F. This subsection applies to property taxes first due and payable 2012 and thereafter. The General Assembly shall, by law, limit a taxpayer's property tax liability as follows. 1. A taxpayer's property tax liability on tangible property described in subsection C4 may not exceed 1% of the gross assessed value of property that is the basis for the determining of property taxes. 2. A taxpayer's property tax liability on other residential property may not exceed 2% of the gross assessed value of the property that is the basis for the determination of property taxes. 3. A taxpayer's tax liability on agricultural land may not exceed 2% of gross assessed value of the land that is the basis for determination of property taxes. 4. The taxpayer's property tax liability on other real property may not exceed 3% of the gross assessed value of property that is the basis of the determination of property taxes. 5. A taxpayer's property tax liability on personal property other than personal property that is tangible property described in subsection C, or personal property that is other residential property within a particular taxing district may not exceed 3% of the gross assessed value of the tax personal property that is the basis for the determination of property taxes within the taxing district. I think this was the FABE 1, 2, 3% taxations. Was that Governor Daniels, Mitch Daniels, if this into effect or encourage passage by the legislature? G, this subsection applies to property taxes first due and payable in 2012 and thereafter. Property taxes imposed after being approved by the voters in a referendum shall not be considered for purposes of calculating the limits to property tax liability on subsection F. Sounds to me like kind of a workaround. H, as used in this subsection, eligible county means only a county for which the General Assembly determines in 2008 that limits to property tax liability as described in subsection F are expected to reduce in 2010 the aggregate property tax revenue that would otherwise be collected by units of local government and corporations in the county by at least 20%. The General may by law abide that property taxes imposed in an eligible county to pay debt service or make lease payments for bonds, leases issued or entered into before July 1st, 2008 shall not be considered for purpose of calculating the limits property tax liability subsection F. Such a law may not apply after December 31st, 2019. Oh boy, did you follow any of that? Here's Andy Horning's comment. This is comment. This isn't the Constitution. This is his comment. The embarrassingly ignorant opening phrase, subject to this section, added November 2010, is a clue that what follows is legal madness. This whole article has been demographied into an awful injustice. It should be nullified, erased, and or otherwise scrapped. It is justly unenforceable as truly uniform and equal tax. Here, I'm going to start this again. It's justly unenforceable as truly uniform and equal property assessed can only be zero. Zero is the only equal number. Okay. And the just valuation clause renders tax impossible because the state's illegal spending. Taxing people out of their homes, subsidize pro sports, for example, is not only immoral, it's also unconstitutional. And not only the constitutional prohibitions on such spending, whatever isn't authorized is denied. Remember, it's not authorized, it is denied. Article Section 25, but also by the constitutional prohibition on such takings. Article 1, Section 21. But the letter of this law keeps getting worse. The 2004 removal of inventory from Section 2, tangible personal property as above, here that personal property taxes would go up. The 2004 addition, more verbosity, starting under 4 above, ensured more confusion. And now we fixed it with caps, depending upon that degree of vagaries, grossest value. Who are we fooling with these caps? Apparently ourselves, since voted approved it. This part of the Constitution has ruined, and property tax cannot ever be levied without corruption, injustice, and bad results. Again, that's Horning's comment. I'm merely reading. Back to the Constitution, if you're still conscious. Section 2, public debt. all the revenues derived from the sale of any of the public works belonging to the state and from the annual income thereof, and any surplus that may at any time remain in the treasury derived from taxation for general state purposes after the payment of ordinary expenses of the government and of the interest on bonds of the state other than bank bonds shall be applied under the direction of the General Assembly to the payment of the principal of public debt. Payment of the principal of the public debt. So what happened with our surplus this year? Ask your representative. Secretary. No money shall be drawn from the treasury but in pursuance of appropriations made by law and laws. This is a comment. Exclusive purview of the General Assembly. Not the governor, not this. Andy Horning goes on. A good number of appropriations are made by bureaucracies in flagrant violation of this law. Section 4. Accurate statement of receipts and expenditures of public money shall be published with the laws of each regular session of the General Assembly. Section 5. I warned you this was word salad. No law shall authorize any debt to be contracted on behalf of the state except in the following cases: to meet casual deficits in the revenue, to pay interest on the state debt, repel invasion, suppress insurrection, or if hostilities be threatened, to provide for the public defense. And Andy Horning, deficits in revenue are not the same as deficits in desired spending. And bureaucracies do not transcend this law. Most government debt is illegal, no matter how it is described. See Article 3. Section 6. No county shall subscribe for stock in any incorporated company unless this is be paid for at the time of subscription, nor shall any county loan its credit to any incorporated company or borrow money for the purpose of taking stock in any such company, nor shall General Assembly ever, on behalf of the state, assume the debt of any county, city, town, or township, nor of any corporation whatever. Andy comments. Remember this when you read Article 11, Section 12, and consider even the state's well-intended bailouts. Local schools, governing units are specifically illegal. Section 7, Wabash Erie Canal. Remember, I told you that the state extended itself, and that's why they needed a new constitution in 1851 to increase revenue. Section 7. No law or resolution shall ever be passed by the General Assembly of the State of Indiana that shall recognize any liability of the state to pay or redeem any certificate of stock issued in pursuant to an act entitled and act to provide for the funded debt of the state of Indiana and for the completion of the Wabash and Erie Canal to Evansville, passed January 19, 1846. And an act subsequent to said act January 29, 1847, which by the provision of said acts, either of them shall be payable exclusively from the proceeds of the canal lands and the tolls and revenues of the canal in acts mentioned, and no such certificates of stock shall ever be paid by the state. That amendment was added 1873. Sounds like there was financial trouble. Andy Horning states, the state went broke investing in the public transportation system. It used this calamity as an excuse to scrap good constitution, write a weaker or ambiguous one, and deny its own accountability for the mess. Scandalous, terrible behavior. I don't know why we trust politicians with our money. Section 8, income tax. The General Assembly may levy and collect tax upon income from whatever is derived at such rates in such manner and with such exemptions as may be prescribed by law. Added November 8, 1932. Hey for the presses. Property tax wasn't enough. Now it's income tax. Tax enough already? Andy Horning comments, y'all ought to kill this section. It solved no problems and created many. Well, that's the end of Article 10, Finance. I'm really sorry that was quite boring and difficult to listen to, but that's finance. I will see you next. I will see you next on Thursday, September 2nd. September 2nd. Remember, we're on the 2-week schedule here. 7 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube for the discussion of Article 11, corporations. I'm hoping that will be as entertaining as finance. Like I said, you know this stuff. It's our Constitution. So in closing, Hoosiers, I just want to remind you to follow doctor's orders. Remember, wash your hand. Don't touch face. But above all, keep your distance. Keep your distance from the socialist, statist, globalist, collectivists, politicians, and bureaucrats. Because now, Hoosiers, you know who they are. The curtain has been pulled back, and they can no longer hide. So let's drain the swamp 2022. It's time to restore Hoosier liberty. And as they say at the conclusion of JBS Constitution Corner, don't just know your Constitution, live it. Live it every day, every moment. Thank you very much, Hoosiers. See you in 2 weeks. Article 11, corporations. Sorry, there's only 16 hours. We're getting there. All right, good night.